Welcome, everyone, to our first ever episode of Not Your Typical.
Today is not your typical podcast. It's just Jade and I coming on to introduce ourselves and going through the challenges and realities of being parents of children with autism. Jade.
Hi, babes.
This is episode 1, season 1.
Believe it.
Of Not Your Typical podcast.
Woohoo!
And this is not our typical podcast because we usually will have guests on the show, but we thought for episode 1, season 1, it's just about me and you.
100%.
So I thought it would be a really good start to introduce who we are and about our families.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Shall I go first?
You go, girl.
Okay. So I am Sophie and I am married to my lovely husband, Josh, and I have 2 children. I have Callie, who is 5.5. I generally cannot believe I have a 5.5-year-old, mental. And I have Marley, who is 3. And we're here today to talk all about our families having additional needs.
Yeah.
So Callie has a diagnosis of autism and global delay and is on the pathway for ADHD. So we've got the 3 triple whammies. Yay us. It's been a roller coaster. For sure. It's been a really long journey and I feel like it's going to be a journey forever.
Yeah.
So when we found out that Callie was autistic, it was something that I could just never fully accept. I don't know if you feel the same way.
How old was she?
She was just under 3 when we got her actual diagnosis.
Yeah.
But I think from about 18 months, we started to realise that something's just not quite right.
What were those things?
Well,
those markers?
It was tough for us because of good old COVID, we were in lockdown when Callie was 9 months old. So I'm a first-time mum.
Yeah.
You don't go to school and learn about how to be a mum. So I didn't know what I meant to be looking for and what not. Because obviously at the end of the day, when it comes to autism or any sort of diagnosis like that, it's an invisible diagnosis.
Yes.
So there wasn't anything physically that she wasn't capable of doing. I know that is different for you, which we will discuss. So Callie was hitting all her milestones. She was standing up when she was 9 months old. She took her first steps when she was 1. It had to be towards food, otherwise she probably wouldn't move.
Yeah.
You know, food is a big thing in our household. And she was so fascinated with books. We would sit for hours, we would read books. She'd be turning the page. I've got videos of her turning the page. They were so fast. She was so interested in everything. She could count to 3. She could do animal sounds. Our favourite song was Wind the Bobbin Up. And then around 18 months, bam, done.
Wow.
No words, no actions, and no eye engagement at all.
And that's basically what they call a regression.
She had a regression.
Yeah.
And what was mad is when we first went to see the paediatrician and I mentioned an 18-month regression, there and then without even going further, she was like, okay. I think the 18-month mark is a really big regression, or like the time where a child typically has a regression.
Yeah.
So that happened for us. Callie hit every milestone then until she had her regression, and then it was like every red flag there was, she had.
Yeah.
And that's what's difficult for me to understand when I see other people that get a diagnosis later on. It's like, but they had eye contact and they talk. It's a bit like Marley. I'm not too sure about Marley yet, but he hits every milestone. But he has his own different behaviours. So
yeah, but I don't think Marley is the autistic type.
He's not. He doesn't typically shout, I am autistic. Callie did.
Yeah.
She had 0 eye contact. She did not point. She did not engage. She was so fixed on the TV. I remember I used to go to friends' houses. I'm like, sorry, can we just put the TV on and it will just relax her?
Yeah.
Whereas all the other kids would be playing with toys. But it was, and I feel like I made excuses all the time for her. Oh, she had a really bad night's sleep. Oh, she must be hungry, because her behaviours weren't typical behaviours. So I wasn't the one to have any thoughts that Callie may have something wrong with her. I was very much in denial, and I just thought, she's a baby, let her get on with it. They develop at their own time. She's happy.
They all get to the same place, just at different times.
They all catch up.
Yeah.
And that wasn't, it was then that Josh started saying, Soph, I don't think things are right. And I remember so vividly, and it's not a bad thing that my dad said, but it's just something that I can remember so well. When you were finally allowed to go and see one family member when you were in lockdown, we went to mum and dad's house, and I remember she was playing with the toy kitchen and dad kept saying, Callie, Callie, and she wouldn't turn around to answer her name. And he kind of laughed because we obviously had no idea, and obviously like she was just in her own world with playing with her toys.
Yeah.
She was like, Sophie, it's so funny. Like, I can call her name a million times and she doesn't answer. Look, Callie. And I brushed it behind. I was like, don't be silly. She's playing with her toys. Leave her alone.
I remember you saying, I'm sure, that your mum picked it up quite early as well.
She picked it up early, but never told me.
Yeah.
I feel like that's the relationship I have with my mum. Until we need to get to that point, she's not going to put things into my head. And I really respect that.
Yeah.
I remember coming off slight topic, but just an example, I had an ex-boyfriend, my first ever boyfriend, that cheated on me the entire time. And my mum knew about that he was cheating on me because you know how our world is. So many people talk. And she knew for a long time before I even knew. And she said, I'm not doing anything until she finds it out herself because it's for Sophie to work things out, not for us to get involved. And I feel like she did that with Callie as well. I now know that Josh and my mum talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
But I wasn't ready to have any sort of conversation. It just went behind me.
It's kind of like what my mum used to say to me when I was a kid. She used to say to me, I wish I could put my head on your shoulders. But unfortunately you can't, and you have to find out sometimes the hard way.
But I really respect that. And it's something that I want to be the same for my own children if I can be that way towards them. So I remember we luckily got private medical insurance, which doesn't cover having going to see a doctor about having a child with additional needs. But for some reason, I wanged my way through. I went to the GP first and I mentioned, which was true, so I wasn't lying about it, that this child does not sleep. She's up 8 times a night. We had no sleep. She would be up for a minute or she'll be up for hours every single night. So I got through that way to say that she's got sleep issues.
Was that from her regression, or was she always like that even before?
Since she was 3-4 months old.
Okay.
The first 4 months, I was like, this is a breeze. This child wakes up once in the night. She has a bit of a feed on me and then goes back to sleep. And then something just changed.
Yeah.
So the doctor referred me and I did my research, and the doctor that she referred me to, the pediatrician, was also a specialist within autism.
Oh, wow. Very lucky.
Very lucky. So we saw her straight away. It was an 1.5 hour assessment. She didn't do one thing in the assessment. No eye contact, no playing,
How old was
nothing.
she at this point?
I think about 19, 20 months, because actually it was a really quick process for us. And I know that's different now. And I think that's the only one thing that I can thank COVID for.
Yeah.
Because since from COVID, as you know, the backlist now is horrific.
Horrific.
I just got in there beforehand. The doctor basically told us there and then, the pediatrician, that she is autistic, but, you know, we had to have another assessment with another doctor, and then we had to have a speech and language assessment as well. They all then gather their thoughts and confirm a diagnosis. And I just remember 3 months later, I had a Zoom call with her and she confirmed it.
Yay.
Yeah. And it's still, even though it was like 3 years ago, it's still
raw. Oh, don't, you're going to start me off.
And I remember Josh was at work and mum and dad were there. I was at their house and I just ran in and I was like, she's got it. Now what? And that's where we are ever since. I feel like there hasn't been a lot of support. We've now been, discharged from the pediatrician. So I said to her, okay, now what do I do? Who do I call? If I need to email you, what do I do? And she said, well, she's autistic. She's thriving. She's doing really well. She doesn't need to be under my case anymore. And that's where you feel so alone, because then you don't even have a professional that comes with you and is just kind of your person. And that's why I feel like we've come together.
Yeah.
Because we're two SEN mums that I'd love to talk about our relationship and how we know each other. That we want to educate, we want to share, we want people to know what it's like, and
we want to learn, because every day I feel like I'm learning.
Yeah.
And losing.
And surviving. Yeah. And there's great days. I had the best week we've ever had last week with her. She blows me away, that child. And then we have days where it's just really not that way at all. Yeah. And I know that's quite normal
for us.
Yes, but for adults with families that have typical children, of course they have challenging days as well. Don't want to put that on people that, you know, our life is so difficult, because everyone has difficult moments. But our moments are way more difficult than maybe others, perhaps. So that's my story of Callie. Yes, also got a global delayed diagnosis as well. And as I said, we're on the pathway for ADHD, but that is a long journey.
That one is.
I've had 2 texts now saying, we still know you're waiting. Okay.
You've got a text.
I got a text. What have you got?
Nothing.
So tell us about you. Tell us about your story.
So I'm Jade. My husband is Nick, and we have 3 beautiful children. Brody, who is 10, Blake, who is 8, and Bailey Bow, who has just turned 3. Bailey Bow is my autistic child. She wasn't planned. She was a beautiful surprise. I think I always knew something wasn't right, even from when I fell pregnant. She was transverse inside my tummy.
So was Callie, may I add, which is quite interesting because I hear this quite a bit.
Where they lie crossways and not down.
Yeah.
So we always looked quite boxy and square, which was not very flattering in any sort of clothing.
I'm 5 foot in size 10, 12. It wasn't a look.
But so that was the first thing. And I had a COVID jab also when I was pregnant, not knowing that I was pregnant at the time. But whether
Did they say not to?
No, they said it was up to me, basically. And, you know, with COVID, everyone was so scared at the beginning that I thought I had to save my own life. You know, people were dying. So I had the first COVID jab. And I really just don't know. I mean, my waters broke 5.5 weeks before I was due to give birth, and I didn't realise that they'd broken. So I think it was a Friday night, and I was at my mum for dinner, and I went home, and my mucus plug fell out into the toilet. And I remember taking a picture of it. I've never had this with my other 2 because my other 2 I was induced, so I'd never gone into natural labour. And I remember seeing it in the toilet, and I think I took a picture of it, and I sent it to my mum, and she was like, yeah, I think that might be your mucus plug. I would go to triage and check it out. And it was late at night, and I was like, no, I can't be bothered. I just want to go to sleep. I'm tired. She was like, okay. Anyway, I was lying there in bed and I couldn't sleep. And I said to Nick, do you know what? Maybe I should go and get this checked out. So we were coming to the end of COVID. So he took me there, but he wasn't actually allowed to come in with me. So I went in and they got me on the monitor, and they'd said to me, when did your waters break? And I was like, what do you mean they haven't? They were like, well, your waters have broken. You have lost your mucus plug, and the way that Bailey Bow is lying, we have to get her out immediately because of all the tubes. She could literally just fall out of me.
So what? This was 35 weeks pregnant?
This was 35 weeks pregnant. So Nick, bless him, had just gone back home, and then I'd called him when the doctor had come in and said, we're going to take you down now for an emergency C-section. He then drove all the way back, and within the hour she was out.
As in no induction?
No.
She just came out?
As in I had a C-section.
Oh, you had a C-section?
So they took me into the operating theatre, and then afterwards they were fiddling around, and I was saying, is everything okay? Is everything okay? And they were like, yeah, everything's fine. We just can't stop you bleeding. And I was like, okay, so now what? They were like, I think we're going to have to put you to sleep.
Wow.
So I hadn't even held Bailey Bow. They put me to sleep and they stopped my bleeding, and then I was in recovery, and they let me meet Bailey, and then they said, okay, we need to take her up to the ICU.
Wow. Well, how big was she?
She was humongous. She was 8'5".
No way.
35
weeks
early. So you can imagine
goodness.
She was in the ICU with all these gorgeous tiny babies, and then there was just literally a lump.
I love her.
I know. So I didn't even really get to hold her or anything. They took her straight up because her lungs hadn't developed properly, and I think she had caught an infection. I can't really remember what it was, and she was also very jaundiced.
Okay.
Which they say is also a sign, and a really early sign of autism.
Haven't heard that one. But
Yeah.
Callie was also jaundiced.
Yeah, because it's something to do with the blood. Anyway, fast forward, we went home. Everything was lovely. She'd got over her infection. My other 2 children were over the moon that they'd had a new sibling.
Did you know you were having a girl?
Yes, we found out we were having a girl, which was lovely.
And you already knew her name?
We already knew her name.
So she was ready?
She was ready.
Yeah.
She was ready to come. And then fast forward maybe to 9 months, I feel like that's when she probably had her regression. Whether it wasn't a massive regression because she obviously wasn't speaking by then. But she used to give us eye contact. She used to like not respond to her name, but she'd look at us if we called her name. She'd giggle. You know, if Nick came in from work, she'd look around and she'd see him and she'd smile. She clapped, but not. I don't think she actually knew that she was clapping at that age. And then one day it just stopped. And I actually didn't notice it first. One of my friends at school noticed it because she was such a happy, smiley baby. She said, why is she not looking at me? Why is she not responding or smiling at me?
And this was when she was 9 months?
Yeah, between 9 and 10 months. And I thought nothing of it, as you do. Maybe it's just a bad day. She's tired. She's got a period. And then I don't know where it came from, but we were in our living room one afternoon and she just wasn't responding. She wasn't playing. She wasn't hitting milestones either. And I remember Nick coming out with, maybe she's autistic, Jade, out of nowhere.
So mad.
It's so random.
It's so random because how much did you really know about
I
autism?
knew
How
nothing.
What did Nick know?
Nothing. So he came out with, maybe she's autistic. Obviously none of us had ever heard of anything in the family before, and I didn't even know what autism meant, if I'm being totally honest with you. But and I think at that point I was like, no, don't be stupid. Maybe, you know, she can't hear, so let's take her to see an ENT. Yeah. Which is exactly what we did.
Is that what you thought then? That she wasn't, because not answering her name, obviously maybe she's got something wrong with her hearing.
So we took her to see an ENT and they did say that she had minor glue ear. So she had grommets put in.
And surely that must have made you feel relieved knowing that she's got glue ear, which is affecting her hearing.
Yes. But what happens is that once you've had the grommets put in, it should be quite instant that they can hear if that's the issue. It didn't change anything. So we decided to go down the route of going to see a paediatrician, because the one good thing I could probably say about myself and my husband is that we were never in denial. Yeah. We always faced things head on together, and that's what we did. And I think also she didn't pass any of her milestones. So we got to about a year and you have your year checkup, and she wasn't doing anything that she was meant to do. And I think having two typical children before her, I kind of knew where she's meant to be. Listen, everyone progresses differently, as we've said, but you kind of know where they should be at a certain time.
True. But at the same time, I've got a 3-year-old like you. And if someone said to me, I don't know, when did he start really enjoying his food? I wouldn't have a clue. I just don't digest information.
Yes, so, but you kind of know when they're meant to say their first words around, you know, when they're meant to be clapping or when they're meant to be pointing, little things like that she wasn't doing that I really knew that she should have been doing. Yeah. So we obviously went down the route of seeing a paediatrician. And
can I just stop you for one second? Because obviously I haven't mentioned it, but obviously I run a social media page called Bonded by Babies, which has turned into more of a SEN page. Yeah. And lots of people ask me the question, I think my child may be autistic. What do I do? Where do I start? So out of interest, we started with our health visitor. Yeah. You went straight to
a paediatrician.
How did you get the paediatrician? Did you go privately for that? Okay.
So but our health visitor had obviously said to us, you know, maybe you should be looking at going down this route as well. So
has that health visitor, I know you're still on the waiting list for the NHS.
I still speak to the same health visitor.
They've the one that have referred her as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can go down the paediatrician private route, or you can go down the health visitor or GP.
You can make an appointment at your GP.
Right.
And they will refer you.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it takes just as long privately or NHS.
You said you guys would go to the paediatrician.
Yeah, we went to the paediatrician, and listen, she was very young. She was under 1 at that point, so they couldn't diagnose her. But they basically said to us that with all her markers, that continue as if there is something there. And she has been on the waiting list ever since. They did say when she turned 3, they could give her a diagnosis. I'm still waiting for that diagnosis. I do, however, have her global development delay diagnosis, which I did get about 6 months ago.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that's really where we are. But obviously our stories are very different. Our kids are very different. Bailey Bow is nonverbal.
Yeah.
She doesn't speak.
Yeah.
She also has no understanding of life, lack of communication. Her world is very small. You know, she goes to nursery, she goes to a childminder, she comes home. Everything is routine based with Bailey. Outside of that, she doesn't really mesh or work well, and nor do I really.
Mm-hmm.
It's very difficult. You know, we've learned to communicate through her taking my hand and leading me to what she wants. Obviously, again, that's really small. I mean, she will pass me the remote control and I guess she wants the TV on or she wants the TV changed. She will lead my hand to food if she's hungry. But other than that, we have no communication.
Are you having speech therapy? Is she having speech therapy?
We started speech and language therapy when she was under 1 year old. And we've continued it probably till about 6 months ago. And we have stopped it for a while because my speech therapist did say to me that there's such little improvement that she's better off probably going to her childminder, going to her...
Better intervention for
yes.
her. Yeah, we found that too, actually. The speech therapist was great at the beginning to teach us how to communicate with her. So different options, which I know that you do as well. Yeah. Would you like the blue one or the red one? Because even though they're not going to say it, because Callie is verbal now, but she wasn't verbal after her regression until she was around 3.5. She would have words. Then that was the best thing that the speech therapist could do, was to teach us things that we could practice on at home.
Yeah.
But since nurseries, especially in Callie's case, and school especially, thankfully it's really come a long way. And I think that is that they're understanding the world around them in their settings that they're in.
Yeah, see, I do feel that she did have another small regression in between 2 to 3 years old, because the things that I've taught her, she doesn't do anymore. And I don't know whether that's because I've stopped doing them and we've moved on to other things.
So give me an example of like what she stopped.
So we would sing the song, "If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, touch your head." And she would actually clap her hands unaided. It came to the point, we started where I'd take her hands and would clap. And over probably 6 months of doing it, she started to do it herself. She started to touch her head. I can't remember, there's something else that we did. But she would do it herself. And then, you know, life continues and you do something else or you forget to do that for a few times. And now if I do it with her, she won't do it.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that is part of a regression or she's forgotten because we haven't been doing it every day.
I think the most difficult thing about having a child with additional needs is the unknown. So this is an unknown situation for you. Is it you that haven't continued? Is it because she's had a regression?
I ask?
Where do you go?
Where do I go?
And everyone's story is different. So although we really want to do this and help understand and educate and make people feel that they're not alone with things, it doesn't mean that because our child does that, it means that your child's going to do that. And I think that's what's really tough as well, is that every single child is different with their needs. Because I know you've mentioned to me before when we're, you know, just socialising, oh, Bailey Bow she's not going to be like Callie. She's not like Callie. Callie's really progressed and I don't think, I can't see it. The answer is we just don't know. No one can say, no, you're right. Because I had a speech therapist that said to me, I said to her, please tell me Callie's going to talk. Is she ever going to talk? And she said, that. What does that mean? I don't know. Maybe. I can't tell you. I took that as no, she can't.
Yeah.
And that's what's the most difficult part of this journey, is it's also unknown.
I just feel like my gut has always been right when it comes to her. And I just don't know. I just don't know if she's going to speak. I don't know if she's ever going to understand the world. I don't know if she's ever going to have friends, if she's going to be living with someone else. I just don't know. And that's why when you ask me, would you rather know your future? I would. Because the unknown for me is so scary.
It's so scary. The thing is, I understand that too, and I've always had that mindset.
I'm the ugliest cry, by the way.
Let it out. This is our therapy session as well, let me tell you. When I, with my social media page, I talk in front of the phone. People think I'm nuts. All I do, I'm like, hi there, today this. I mean, I can't even tell you what I spoke to TikTok about today, about Callie harming herself. Like, as if I'm her mum, and I'm talking about my child harming herself.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, yes, at the moment, what she's currently doing is she's making from nothing. Her skin is beautifully soft and she is scratching it till it bleeds and it's so sore. She's got them all over her hands, all over her arms, all over her legs. And then the scary thing is I'm asking for answers, which I don't necessarily want to know the answers, because in my thought, is that going to lead on to something way worse with the harming, you know, what you think harming is, but it is a form of harming. So although I want to know the future as well, I don't think we also do.
Yeah.
But then when I think about my future, I got told at school last week that Callie's got friends. That makes me cry every time, because we're such sociable people, aren't we? And our husbands are, and your other children are, and Marley is. And it's like, but are our children going to be like that as well? And that's what's so difficult.
I don't think they are. Well, I don't think Bailey is.
But I think Callie's so loved.
But she is so far behind. You know, like I've had a 9-month-old for nearly 3 years. And I don't see any progression.
You only see it going backwards.
Yep.
So she's physically stopped now all the movements with her songs. Yep. There's nothing there at all.
No.
So how would you describe Bailey Bow to anyone that's listening? How would you describe how she is today? What can she do? Because that's probably easier to say than what can't she do.
What can she do? What a typical child does.
Can she walk?
She can walk.
When did she start walking?
She was pretty late, yeah. She's also severely hypermobile. So she walked, she was over 2. Yeah. Maybe 2 and 2 months. But she's very unbalanced. She can't walk upstairs, or she can't even see a step in front of her. So I have to kind of drag her. She can't walk far at all.
And we love her so much, but she's not the smallest child, is she?
Not.
And you're a small little lady that has to carry this gorgeous little girl around with you. And I see you at parties and out, and you're constantly
her about.
So she's so heavy. I mean, Callie was the same. She's also a bigger girl, so it's so heavy. And then
like a dead weight.
Yes. And they don't want to be in the buggy, but they don't want to walk. They want to be carried, and it's tough. So I feel you. So she can walk.
She can walk.
Does she make any sounds?
She makes loads of sounds. Her new sound at the moment is whistling. Oh, I know.
That's clever.
She whistles, and she does like ma 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 pa pa pa. You know, she says all those sort of things, and she screams when she's happy or watching telly.
So you know she's happy.
Yeah. Oh my God. The one thing I can say is that she is the happiest child, probably out of all of my children.
And that's what I think we need to really, really push towards anyone that's listening to this, is that although they are in their own world, and I feel like I can now finally say, with Callie being 5.5, she dips in and out of our world and her world. So she's finally coming out. She might not always come out.
Yeah.
But that they are such happy little souls. I've never seen a happier child. And I can say the same with Bailey Bow. Yeah. They are so happy. They are so loved. Everyone wants to talk to Callie and play with Callie, and the mums call me, hi, can Callie come for a play date? I'm like, what?
That's amazing.
What? Shall I come with? Do I just leave, and the kids are so accepting, and I know you're not there yet when it comes to schooling and settings, whether it's going to be mainstream or specialist, but we are now in a generation where children are way more accepting, and I feel like, again, this is why, no, I really, really believe in that, and I feel that, you know, why we run our social media pages and why we're running this podcast is to just to let everyone know that it's just accepting and acceptable. I work as a life coach, so I work with children, and I'm working with a child at the moment who's just had a diagnosis of ADHD. And she's fine. She's at a mainstream school. She's very social. And I look at her and I'm like, I pray my child is like you. And she's like, oh, and my best friend so-and-so, she's autistic. So like she wears ear defenders. I really want ear defenders now. And I'm like, wait, they think it's cool. Yeah, they want to be like their best friend who's autistic. How mad and amazing is that for our future? So although there are awful downs and awful worries and awful unknowns, there are such wonderful things about our children.
I agree.
And I really do believe, especially in the world that we live in and sharing it, that our kids will be accepted and they will be loved. And we have to think of the positives.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about siblings. So obviously it's very different for you because you have two children that are older than Bailey Bo.
Yep.
Marley's obviously younger. So even though their relationship is wonderful. I mean, Marley even said the other day, he said, Callie, just talk. And I'm like,
gosh.
oh, please. I'm like, Callie. And I feel like I'm always nudging her. If like a friend at school says like, hi, Callie, I feel like I'm her voice.
Yeah,
and I
but
feel
does Marley understand? He's too young to
I
understand.
don't think he understands.
No.
But he, weirdly enough, there's a woman that goes into his nursery that monitors one child that's developmentally developing in the right way, and they asked it to be Marley, and I was like, oh my God, this is so wonderful for me. And she said, he is the sweetest, most loveliest boy. He is so caring, and he so understands when a child isn't typical. Half of his nursery, 20 of them, have additional needs.
Wow. But I think subconsciously he knows.
He must know, and he says that there's a girl that's nonverbal there.
Yeah.
She really reminds me of Bailey Bo. They're just gorgeous souls. And he went up to her and he was like, the green or the red? And he was doing options with this autistic girl.
And did you used to do that with Callie?
Yeah. So and I do it with him as well because he's still 3, so he's still developing his speech. And I feel like it's only going to help it develop now that I'm like a semi-speech therapist. Had enough experience, I might as well get a qualification. Yeah. But going on about siblings, like what are your kids like with Bailey Bo?
You know what? They're amazing. They're amazing with Bailey Bo, especially my son, Brody. He's a very sensitive soul. He's my firstborn. And he'll do everything and anything for her. Obviously, if it doesn't mean it interrupts his PlayStation or, on the phone. But he always does say to me, Mummy, is she going to be okay? Mummy, is she ever going to talk again? Is she ever going to talk? And I don't have the answers for him. And we've always been so honest with our children. Yeah. We've always said, she has autism.
So you have simply told your children that Bailey Bo is autistic?
Yes, 100%. And my son's had some counselling over it at the beginning because he couldn't even say the word. And I think it's more because he didn't understand it. But now that we explain it to him, we're always so honest with them that they understand. My daughter is also very good with her. They try and play with her, but Bailey Bo's not really interested in them. They would love to. They would love to play with her and be their older sibling, which, yes, they still are her older sibling. But at the moment, she doesn't have much interest in them.
And when I know that your kids are very sociable, whenever I call you, what are you doing? Oh, this one's on play date. This one's here. When they have friends over and Bailey Bo's at home, what are their friends like? Do they say, oh, I've got a sister that has got additional needs? They very much outright say it. Okay.
And it's amazing because they will, I can even see at this young age, they will always have Bailey Bo's back.
It's amazing.
Yeah. I mean, if anyone tried to ever say anything, my kids would be at her defense.
It's what you need. It's it's always that worry. And I know it's awful to say, but when we're not around, that they're going to be looked after. Yeah. And I just feel like your kids will absolutely be like that. And I feel that Marley will be the same.
Yeah. Our house has always been an open book. We've always told people everything when they come here. Because also we don't want them to feel worried or anxious about, coming to see their friends and there's a little autistic child in the corner, because it's not like that. But you know what? They've got as much interest in her as a typical 8 and 10-year-old would have him and sibling. Yeah. But the main thing is that they will always have her back. I truly believe that.
How do you think you're supported with people around you, your friends, family?
My friends are unbelievable. They just want to know, and they also want to learn themselves as well. They find it fascinating. Like when they come over, they always say to me, I could stare at her all day. I wonder what's going on in her head. I want to be in her head. But they always ask me how she is. And they're obsessed with her just as much as we all are.
It's mad how, you can have obsessions with other friends, your friends' kids, but the way that my friends and your friends are towards our children that have needs is truly amazing. Because I feel like a lot of people feel very alone and very unsupported, and that they lose a lot of friends throughout the journey. But
don't get me wrong, there's some people that I thought might have stepped up that haven't. Mm-hmm. Obviously no names.
Of course.
But then They
But
weren't
it's
friends.
their way of coping, or I truly believe they don't know what to say or how to say things.
Yes, but I do also think that sometimes saying nothing is worse.
Mm-hmm.
So
I find now, and it's okay, but I really notice the way that some people speak to Callie. They still speak to her like she's a 2-year-old. They're like, hello, Callie. Have you had a good day? And I'm like, you can just say, hi, Callie, have you had a good day?
Yeah.
And she will be able to. But again, because people don't know, as we said at the beginning, or in our trailer actually, we didn't really understand what autism was. So why would we expect other people to?
And that's why we're doing this.
This is why we're doing this, and we're running our pages. So guys, give us a follow.
Well, hey.
I feel like we have to mention how we met and how we know each other.
Yeah, definitely.
We grew up together.
We did.
We lived on the same road, and there was only 11 houses on the road.
How do you remember that?
Because my parents still live there.
Of course.
And my brother and sister-in-law live
There's
there.
11 on the road, but then it does go round.
Yeah, but the round ones are irrelevant.
Never knew
'cause they're
anyone
not,
there.
No, we don't. We used to play on the street at 7 o'clock, and then there was always one mother, mine, that would shout for her children to come in because it's bedtime.
Well, you always were a little bit younger than us.
Yeah, that's true. I used to look out my window and sulk and just stare at you all still playing out, and there was me just having to go to bed. And then obviously you guys moved.
Yep.
We're still there, and we didn't. How many years did we not speak for?
I left where we lived when I was 18.
Were you 18?
Yeah, and I'm now 40.
So what's that then? Do the math.
I will do the maths. That is 22 years.
So we have no mutual friends until I came to your 40th recently, and now I'm in a paddle group. I'm in a WhatsApp group with all your friends. Hilarious.
I love that.
We have got a mutual, really close friend that both of us are very close
Yeah.
with. And how we reconnected was we went for lunch, the three of us.
She called me up and said, I really think it would help if you would maybe call Sophie. She has a daughter that's a few years older than
Did
Bailey
you know
Bo.
that? Did you follow my journey on Instagram? So you had no idea that Sophie
No, I only knew Callie was autistic when I was going through everything with Bailey.
And then
started following you, and people were telling me that, do you know that Sophie has a child also? Maybe it's a good thing if you gave her a call. I just wasn't ready.
Feel you.
I totally accepted that Bailey Bo was autistic, but I just wasn't ready to talk. I was so emotional and I couldn't string a sentence together about it.
So many people, you should speak to this person. Still now.
I still get it too.
You should do this. Let's meet up. And I'm like, whoa, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't want any of this. I want to be in my own bubble, but I really don't want to be in my own bubble at the same time. So I really understand that.
I totally get that.
So then our mutual friend was like, let's arrange a lunch. And she said to me, which I don't think you actually know, she was like, Jade's coming and she thinks that Bailey Bo may be autistic. So she might mention it to you today. And even though you said you're not ready and you get overwhelmed, I'm also not ready for people that I've known you my whole life, even though we haven't been we're besties now. But even though we weren't close then, it almost hits more that, you know, we've had a long relationship. We've known each other for years, and knowing that someone else in my bubble, because I don't know anyone else until I've met friends recently. Yeah. So for you to then tell me, I mean, you literally just came out with it. And I was expecting it, but I still cried. Yeah. Because
I think we both cried.
Yeah, we did. Because you feel so lonely, but then also we feel that connection that actually we have got each other. Yeah.
You know, sometimes also doing the podcast and doing our social media, it's a way of releasing how I feel.
100%.
It's, as we said, our own therapy.
Yeah.
And then once I'd got it off my chest and told you, I think Bailey's autistic, I just felt a sense of, I think that was maybe the first time that I'd properly said it to someone else other than my close family network. So, and since then we've just
Since then you've called me every single day. What should I do today? Bailey's not doing this. Should I do that? What about me posting this today? Should I do this today? Hi, Jade, you okay?
How impressed are you though?
Very impressed. Jade's just started her own social media Instagram journey, and it really is amazing. It really is. But how many messages have you had, seriously?
Yeah, I've had lots.
Not just from friends, from people
that I don't know. I've had even from people that I've known for 20, 30 years that I haven't spoken to since then, have reached out and just said how unbelievable Bailey Bo is.
Or how they can relate to you.
Yeah.
And that is it's so overwhelming but so rewarding at the same time. So this is what we're here to do. We're here, this is, as I said, not your typical episode 1. We've got amazing things lined up for all the other episodes, which we're so excited to share.
Can't wait.
But I really hope you follow our journey and you like our journey, and let's get the mums in next time.
100%.
Let's do a grandma.
My mum will cry.
Oh,
She is going to be
my
a
mum won't
blubbering
cry.
mess.
She'll cry later on. She'll hold it together.
No.
Not like us.
My mum can't hold it together for more than 5 minutes without crying.
We like a bit of raw emotion.
Yeah.
So
She's prettier than I am when she cries, though.
Oh, is she not an ugly crier?
No, I'm an ugly crier.